Lakshmi had been Mr. Rajashekar's housekeeper for almost a decade. She had started working for him when his children were still in school, and over the years, she had become an integral part of the household. She was a woman of simple means, living a life that many would consider modest. Her days were filled with the quiet rhythm of cleaning, cooking, and caring for the grand house. Each task she performed was done with meticulous care and attention to detail. Her mornings began before the sun rose with the preparation of breakfast for the family. She would then move on to cleaning the various rooms, ensuring that every corner of the house was spotless. The afternoons were spent in the kitchen, preparing elaborate meals that Mr. Rajashekar and his family enjoyed. Mr. Rajashekar, a successful businessman, was used to a life of luxury and power. His days were filled with meetings, business deals, and social engagements. He was a man who commanded respect and authority, both in his professional and personal life. Their worlds, though existing under the same roof, rarely intersected. Mr. Rajashekar was often busy with his work, and Lakshmi was always occupied with her duties. They would pass each other in the hallways, exchanging polite nods and brief greetings, but their interactions were limited. Lakshmi had known Mr. Rajashekar's family for years, witnessing his children grow from boisterous youngsters to successful adults. She had seen them through their school years, celebrated their achievements, and comforted them during their struggles. She was there for their birthdays, their graduations, and their weddings. She was a part of the fabric of the house, her presence as familiar and comforting as the old grandfather clock in the hallway. The house would not have been the same without her, and her absence would have been deeply felt. Lakshmi never questioned her place. She knew her role and performed it with dedication and pride. She took satisfaction in the gleaming floors, the neatly arranged rooms, and the aroma of freshly cooked meals that filled the house. She took pride in her work, finding satisfaction in the gleaming floors and the aroma of freshly cooked meals. Each task she completed was a testament to her hard work and commitment. She found joy in the small things, like the smile on Mr. Rajashekar's face when he enjoyed a meal she had prepared. She treated Mr. Rajashekar's children with the same love and care she had for her own, long grown and living far away. She would often think of her own children, wondering how they were doing and hoping they were happy. The bond she shared with Mr. Rajashekar's children was special, and she cherished it deeply. Though their lives were vastly different, a quiet respect existed between Lakshmi and Mr. Rajashekar, a silent acknowledgement of their shared history within the walls of the house. They both understood the importance of their roles and the impact they had on each other's lives. Little did she know that this unspoken understanding was about to be tested in the most unexpected way. An unforeseen event was on the horizon, one that would challenge the very foundation of their relationship and the dynamics of the household. Lakshmi's life of service was about to take a turn she could never have anticipated, and the strength of her character would be put to the ultimate test. One evening, Mr. Rajashekar called Lakshmi to his study. The room was filled with the scent of old books and the soft glow of a vintage lamp. Mr. Rajashekar, a man of considerable wealth and influence, had an air of authority that was hard to ignore. He was hosting a crucial business dinner, a gathering of influential people he hoped to impress. The dinner was not just a social event, it was a strategic move to secure new business alliances and strengthen existing ones. The stakes were high, and everything needed to be perfect. He needed Lakshmi's help. His regular cook was unwell, and he trusted Lakshmi's culinary skills to prepare a meal that would showcase Indian hospitality at its finest. Lakshmi was known for her exceptional cooking, a talent that had earned her quiet admiration from those who had tasted her food. Lakshmi was surprised, to say the least. She had never been asked to step into such an important role before. The request was unexpected and left her momentarily speechless. She had never been involved in anything beyond her usual duties. Her daily routine consisted of cleaning, organizing, and occasionally helping in the kitchen. But never had she been asked to take on such a significant responsibility. The thought of preparing a meal for such important guests was daunting. She worried about meeting the high standards expected at such an event. What if something went wrong? The pressure was immense. But Mr. Rajashekar, in his booming voice, reassured her. He spoke with a confidence that was infectious, telling her that he had complete faith in her abilities. His words were comforting, yet the responsibility still weighed heavily on her shoulders. He knew she was more than capable. He had seen her work tirelessly and knew her dedication to her craft. His confidence in her was unwavering, and he made sure she knew it. He even requested that she stay and serve the guests, as she knew their preferences well. Lakshmi hesitated. Serving the guests was a task that required not just skill, but also a certain level of social grace, something she was not accustomed to. She had never sat at the dining table with Mr. Rajashekar, let alone served his esteemed guests. The dining room, with its elegant decor and sophisticated ambiance, was a world apart from her usual surroundings. The thought filled her with trepidation. She could feel her heart racing at the mere idea of being in the spotlight, serving dishes to people of such high stature. Yet, she couldn't refuse her employer's request, especially not when he seemed to trust her so implicitly. His faith in her abilities was something she couldn't ignore, and it gave her a sense of duty to rise to the occasion. And so, with a mix of apprehension and quiet determination, Lakshmi agreed to help. She knew this was an opportunity to prove herself, to show that she was capable of more than just her daily chores. With a deep breath, she set her mind to the task ahead, ready to give it her all. Lakshmi began by gathering the finest ingredients, selecting each one with care. She knew that the quality of the ingredients would be crucial in creating a meal that would leave a lasting impression. The kitchen soon filled with the rich aromas of Indian spices, a testament to her skill and dedication. As she cooked, her initial apprehension began to fade, replaced by a sense of purpose. She moved with confidence, her hands expertly chopping, stirring, and seasoning. Each dish was a work of art, a reflection of her passion for cooking. When the meal was finally ready, Lakshmi took a moment to admire her work. The table was set beautifully, each dish arranged with care. She felt a sense of pride, knowing that she had done her best. As the guests began to arrive, Lakshmi took her place, ready to serve. She greeted each guest with a warm smile, her nervousness now replaced by a quiet confidence. She was ready to face the evening, knowing that she had prepared a meal that would make Mr. Rajashekar proud. The evening was a success. The guests were impressed by the meal, praising the flavors and presentation. Lakshmi's hard work had paid off, and she felt a sense of accomplishment that she had never experienced before. As the evening came to a close, Lakshmi couldn't help but smile. She had stepped out of her comfort zone and succeeded. It was an unexpected invitation that had led to a night she would never forget. The night of the dinner arrived. The city was bathed in the soft glow of streetlights, and the mansion stood like a beacon of opulence against the night sky. Lakshmi, dressed in her best sari, stood nervously in the grand dining hall. Her heart pounded in her chest as she took in the grandeur of the room, feeling a mix of awe and trepidation. The room glittered with crystal and silver, the air thick with anticipation. Chandeliers hung like frozen waterfalls from the ceiling, casting a warm golden glow over the meticulously set table. The guests, men and women in expensive attire, spoke in hushed tones, their laughter echoing off the high ceilings. They moved with an air of practiced elegance, their conversations a symphony of sophistication. Lakshmi felt utterly out of place, a sparrow amidst peacocks. She clutched the edge of her sari, trying to steady her trembling hands, feeling the weight of every gaze that passed over her. She moved about quietly, serving the food with trembling hands. Each step felt like a journey, each tray a burden as she navigated the sea of opulence around her. The guests, used to being served by uniformed staff, barely acknowledged her presence. To them, she was just another part of the evening's backdrop, a silent figure in the periphery. They spoke amongst themselves, discussing business deals and market trends, their words like a foreign language to Lakshmi's ears. She caught snippets of conversations about stocks, mergers, and acquisitions, terms that held no meaning for her. She felt invisible, a shadow moving in the periphery of their opulent world. The grandeur of the setting only heightened her sense of isolation, making her feel like an intruder in a world she could never belong to. As the evening progressed, the guests, warmed by the excellent food and flowing wine, grew louder, their laughter more boisterous. The room buzzed with energy, a stark contrast to Lakshmi's growing discomfort. Lakshmi, feeling increasingly out of place, retreated further into herself, wishing for the night to be over. She longed for the comfort of her modest home, where she could shed the weight of this unfamiliar world and be herself once more. Her eyes darted around the room, taking in the faces of the guests, their expressions a mix of joy and indifference. She wondered if any of them had ever felt as out of place as she did now. The sound of glasses clinking brought her back to the present. The guests were toasting to their successes, their voices rising in a chorus of celebration. Lakshmi forced a smile, though her heart wasn't in it. She continued to serve, her movements mechanical, her mind elsewhere. Each dish she placed on the table felt like a step closer to the end of the night, a small victory in her silent struggle. The guests savored their meal, oblivious to the turmoil within Lakshmi. To them, it was just another evening of luxury and indulgence, a world away from the reality she knew. As the clock inched closer to the end of the evening, Lakshmi felt a sense of relief wash over her. Soon, she would be able to leave this world of glitter and return to her own, where she could breathe freely once more. The guests began to leave, their laughter and chatter fading into the night. Lakshmi watched them go, her heart a mix of relief and lingering unease. She had survived the night, but the memory of it would stay with her, a reminder of a world she could never truly be a part of. As Lakshmi moved around the table, refilling wine glasses and clearing plates, she overheard snippets of conversation. Some of the guests, noticing her for the first time, whispered amongst themselves, their words laced with judgment and disdain. "Who is she?" one woman asked, her voice dripping with disdain. "Just the housekeeper," another replied, her tone dismissive and cold. Lakshmi felt a flush of shame creep up her neck. She knew they were talking about her, judging her for her simple clothes and her presence in their midst. She wanted to disappear, to melt into the walls and escape their scornful gazes. But she continued her duties, her head held high, her movements a silent defiance against their unspoken prejudice. She would not let their judgment break her spirit. She had done nothing wrong, nothing to be ashamed of. She was simply doing her job, just as she had done for years.